Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Oh, wait.
Good, because today we're heading to Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Ooh, Milwaukee.
Yeah, and we'll go back in time a bit, over 2 decades, actually,
Yeah.
to a time when the city was gripped by fear because of, well, a serial killer.
Always a fascinating, if disturbing, topic.
Absolutely. This is the story of Walter E. Ellis. You might know him as the Milwaukee North Side Strangler.
Oh, yeah, that one sticks with you.
It does. And it's not just the murders themselves, but the whole case. It really exposes some serious cracks in the criminal justice system.
Oh, absolutely. It makes you question how things could go so wrong.
Exactly. We're talking about the murders, of course, but also the fact that two innocent men ended up serving time for Ellis's crimes.
Tragic. Just tragic.
It really is. And to understand how all of this could happen, I think we need to start with Ellis himself. Learn about the man behind the monster, so to speak.
Agreed. Get into that psychology.
Right. Now, Ellis had a rough childhood. I mean, we're talking impulsive, aggressive, even bullying other kids. Kind of, typical red flag.
Yeah, you see those early signs.
But at 14, things escalated, like dramatically.
Let me guess.
He was arrested for robbery and attempted murder. At 14.
Wow. 14. That's not just kids being kids.
No, it's not. And
Yeah.
you'd think that would be a major turning point, right?
You would hope so. A wake-up call.
But instead, what does he get? A light sentence.
And it feels like that leniency may have just set the stage for, well, a lifetime of criminal behavior.
It's like a missed opportunity right there at the very beginning.
Yeah, right from the start.
And the pattern just continued. He's in and out of trouble, theft, drugs, even extortion.
Always pushing the limits.
And each time, it seems the consequences were minimal. Probation, maybe, at worst.
So he's thinking he can get away with it.
Well, think about this.
Yeah.
At one point, he actually became a police informant.
Whoa. Okay, now that's interesting.
Right. Talk about a twist. So maybe he really did think he could get away with things.
It's a tricky situation, right? This whole informant thing.
It is.
Because authorities, they often have to balance the need for information.
Right. They need those inside scoops.
Exactly. But sometimes it means overlooking minor offenses.
Looking the other way, as
Ro-
they say.
Right. But with Ellis, it seems like that arrangement maybe, just maybe, backfired.
Yeah.
And spectacularly.
Yeah, you could say that. So he's basically playing both sides.
Uh-huh.
Snitching on some people while committing his own crimes, all while thinking he's got this free pass.
And it gets worse, actually.
Uh-oh.
There's evidence that he actually used his informant status as a shield.
Like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Exactly. See, he was known to be violent,
Violent how?
particularly toward his girlfriends. But those incidents, they were just brushed aside.
Wait, so they knew he was assaulting women, but they did nothing because he was an informant.
Yeah. It does highlight the ethical tightrope authorities have to walk.
It's a tough job, but
But in Ellis's case, you could definitely argue the system failed. Miserably. And because of that, he was basically given a free pass to continue, well...
continue his reign of terror.
Right.
And that reign of terror, it took a horrifying turn in 1986. This is when the murders began.
Okay, so let's talk about the victims.
Yeah. What do we know about them?
All women, ranging in age from 19 to 41.
Okay.
And their bodies, they were found in a relatively concentrated area of Milwaukee.
So the police are thinking, this is the work of one person.
They had to be. But the most chilling part, they were all strangled. And that consistency, that's what led investigators to suspect they were dealing with a serial killer.
Wow. That must have sent shockwaves through the city.
Oh, absolutely.
But you said it took years to connect Ellis to these crimes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Years filled with
I love it.
more missed opportunities, more potential victims.
It's a long and frustrating story, a lot more tragedy. But it wasn't until 2009 that DNA evidence finally linked Ellis to the murders.
2009, hold on. That's over 20 years later. What took
Yeah.
so long?
Well, this is where it gets unbelievable, really. The DNA samples needed to make that connection, the samples that could have stopped a serial killer in his tracks,
Yeah.
they'd been mishandled, lost by the Justice
You're
Department.
kidding, right? All that time, the evidence was just sitting somewhere.
It's a bureaucratic nightmare, a real one. And it had, well, devastating consequences. Because of that one simple error, Ellis remained free.
Unbelievable.
And meanwhile, 2 innocent men were wrongfully convicted.
This is where I get angry. Not just at Ellis, but at the whole system that let him slip through the cracks so many times.
It really shows just how crucial it is to have, robust procedures, accountability within the justice system.
Right, because these aren't just case files we're talking about. These are people's lives.
Exactly.
Okay. So after all those years, they finally caught up with Ellis in 2009. Where did they find him?
Motel
A
room?
motel.
Yeah, with his girlfriend, who, by the way, was being held against her will. And it seems she had absolutely no idea about his past.
Wow. It's a chilling reminder that these guys, these serial killers, they can often lead, seemingly normal lives, concealing that dark side from everyone,
Absolutely.
like something out of a horror movie.
It really is. Makes you wonder who you can trust.
Okay, so they arrest Ellis, charge him with 7 murders. What happens next? Does he confess?
Initially, not guilty.
Of course.
But then, in a surprising twist, he changes his plea, accepts a deal that would spare him the death penalty.
I wonder what motivated that change of heart.
Who knows? Maybe trying to control the narrative,
Yeah.
avoid the spotlight of a trial. Maybe, just maybe, some genuine remorse after all these years.
That's hard to say.
It is. But it adds another layer of complexity to an already bewildering case.
For sure. But even with Ellis behind bars, this
Yeah.
story, it's far from over.
Right, because there were still those 2 innocent men who'd been wrongly convicted.
And that's a whole other level of injustice, one that we definitely need to unpack.
Absolutely. And those wrongful convictions, those lives shattered because of flawed eyewitness testimony and lack of access to DNA testing, well, that's where we'll pick up in part 2. It's tough,
What
Justice delayed,
Yeah,
it can mean justice denied.
absolutely. And in these cases, it was justice stolen. 2 innocent men,
Shanti Dean Ott.
right, and William Avery, robbed of years of their lives, families torn apart. I mean, can you imagine the ripple effect, the pain, the anger that spreads through a community?
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And these wrongful convictions, they weren't just bad luck or anything.
Right.
They were the direct result of a system with some serious flaws.
100%.
Okay, so let's break that down a little. What went wrong? What led to these men being convicted for Ellis's crimes?
Well, eyewitness testimony, that played a major role.
Eyewitness testimony. Right.
And we know how unreliable that can be. Memories, they fade, they get distorted. Sometimes witnesses can be influenced by all sorts of things.
External factors.
Right, even unintentionally.
Yeah, I remember reading about this, how even subtle things like the way a question is phrased
Exactly.
can impact a witness's recollection.
It's true. And in these cases, the eyewitness accounts, they were likely even more complicated by the trauma of the situation.
Oh, yeah. It's not like these were casual observers. They were witnessing horrific crime.
Exactly. Events that would just sear themselves into their memories.
So under that kind of stress, it's understandable how their memories could become, I don't know, jumbled.
Absolutely. Leading to misidentification.
Right.
And on top of all that, we have to remember that DNA testing, which is it's a cornerstone of criminal investigations now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It wasn't readily available back then.
So these men didn't have the benefit of that kind of scientific evidence?
Nope, not at all. They were essentially at the mercy of those eyewitness accounts. And whatever circumstantial evidence the prosecution could, muster.
It's heartbreaking to think about them sitting in prison knowing they were innocent, but powerless to prove it. How did their cases eventually get overturned?
Thankfully, as DNA technology advanced, there was a push to revisit old cases,
Okay.
especially those with potential for wrongful convictions.
Makes sense.
And in both Ott and Avery's cases, DNA testing was finally performed, and it proved unequivocally that they were not the perpetrators.
So that's when they were released.
Yes.
But think about the years they lost, the opportunities missed,
No.
the trauma. I mean, being unjustly imprisoned, that's a debt that can never truly be repaid.
You're right.
And it brings up a bigger question about our justice system.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
If these kinds of mistakes can happen, how many other innocent people might be behind bars right now?
It's scary to think about.
It is.
And that's why organizations like the Innocence Project, they're so vital. They work so hard to exonerate the wrongly convicted.
They're heroes.
And they advocate for reforms that can prevent these tragedies from happening in the future.
Yeah, you mentioned reforms. What kind of changes are needed to address these systemic flaws?
Well, improving eyewitness identification procedures.
Okay.
That's crucial. That means things like double-blind lineups.
Double-blind lineups.
Yeah, where the officer presenting the lineup doesn't even know who the suspect is.
So that they can't accidentally or intentionally influence the witness's choice.
Right, exactly.
Makes sense.
What else? We also need to make sure everyone has access to adequate legal representation,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of their income.
Because a good lawyer can make a world of difference.
They really can. You know, the public defender system...
Overloaded.
Yeah, overloaded, underfunded, and that leaves some defendants without the proper legal support they need.
It's a problem.
It is. And of course, you know, we have to keep pushing for expanded access to DNA testing. It's a powerful tool,
It really is.
both for convicting the guilty and exonerating the innocent.
It's amazing, right, how this tiny sample of DNA can rewrite someone's entire life,
It is.
either proving their guilt or setting them free.
It's powerful stuff. Really highlights the importance of scientific evidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the wrongful convictions, the systemic failures, the need for reform. But let's bring it back to Ellis for a second. What happened to him after his conviction?
He died in prison,
Oh.
2013. Complications related to diabetes.
So his reign of terror finally came to an end.
It did.
But even with his death, there are still so many unanswered questions.
Oh, absolutely. Some believe there may be other victims out there.
Really?
Cases that were never connected to him.
Wow. And think about the families of the confirmed victims. The years they spent not knowing who was responsible, then the pain of reliving those traumas when Ellis was finally caught. It's
a lot to process.
it is. It's a stark reminder that the impact of these crimes, it extends far beyond the immediate victims,
Yeah.
leaving scars on families and communities that may never fully heal. And it reinforces the need for us as a society to do better, to support victims and their families, to advocate for a justice system that prioritizes fairness and accuracy, and to work towards a world where tragedies like this are less likely to occur.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a heavy topic. I mean,
Yeah.
we're dealing with some pretty dark stuff here.
We are.
But what I find fascinating is how Ellis's case, it's like a microcosm of so many issues that are plaguing our justice system.
Oh, it is. It's a perfect example. It's not just about one man's crimes.
Right.
It's about the flaws in the system, the ones that allowed him to operate for so long.
And the devastating consequences.
Exactly. And it raises some unsettling questions about the use of police informants, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Big questions.
Like, how much leeway should they be given?
Right.
Are there enough checks and balances in place to prevent abuse?
Those are questions that we should all be asking.
We should. We
Yeah.
really have to find a way to balance the need for information
Right.
with the need to protect potential victims.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. And in Ellis's case, it seems like that balance was tipped way too far in the wrong direction.
Yeah. It's a chilling reminder that even systems designed to uphold justice can be manipulated and exploited.
It's true.
And it underscores the need for constant vigilance, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
I'm with you there.
Well, this has been a truly eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground, from Ellis's troubled childhood to the horrific murders, the mishandled evidence, the wrongful convictions, and the ongoing quest for justice.
So much to unpack.
There is. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure our listeners know where they can go to learn more about this case and the broader issues it raises. So anyone listening who wants to dive deeper, where would you point them?
Well, the Innocence Project. It's an amazing resource, especially when it comes to wrongful convictions.
The Innocence Project, yeah. They've been instrumental in, countless exonerations.
Countless. Using DNA evidence to free people who have been wrongly imprisoned.
Yeah, they're pretty much a household name at this point.
They are.
And they don't just focus on individual cases, do they?
No, not at all. They're also pushing for policy changes, trying to, prevent these miscarriages of justice.
From happening in the first place.
Exactly.
So they're working on the system from, the inside out.
You could say that.
And there are other organizations doing some amazing work, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The National Registry of Exonerations, for example. They're doing really important work.
What do they do?
They collect and analyze data on wrongful convictions.
Oh, interesting.
Which helps us understand the scope of the problem,
Yeah.
identify trends, patterns, all that.
Because data is powerful.
It is.
Helps us move beyond anecdotes, individual cases, and see the bigger picture.
For sure.
It shows us where the system's really broken and where our efforts for reform should be focused.
Exactly.
Okay, so the Innocence Project, the National Registry of Exonerations. What about, resources for this specific case, Ellis?
Well, if you're interested in the issues that came up in Ellis's case, I'd recommend digging into police informant protocols,
Okay.
DNA testing procedures,
Uh-huh.
and the challenges of, eyewitness identification.
Yeah, we talked about those.
We have.
Yeah.
And there are some fantastic books, documentaries, even other podcasts out there that explore these topics in depth.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much information is out there?
It is.
With just a little digging, anyone can really become well-versed in these issues
Absolutely.
and start advocating for change.
Which is what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah, educating ourselves, engaging in thoughtful discussions, and pushing for a more just and equitable society.
It's a team effort.
It is.
Now, I remember reading somewhere that Milwaukee was deeply shaken by these crimes. I mean, makes sense, right? A serial killer operating for years, undetected.
Oh, yeah, that would rattle any community.
Did you find anything about the lasting impact on the city?
Absolutely. This case, it went way beyond the immediate victims and their families. It eroded trust.
Trust in.
Law enforcement, the justice system.
People felt.
Betrayed.
Yeah.
And vulnerable.
Especially in those neighborhoods where the murders took place.
Oh, for sure. Can you imagine the fear?
It's tough to even think about.
And the feeling of safety, security?
Yeah.
That's so fundamental.
It is.
And when that's shattered, it can take a long time to rebuild.
That's a long road back.
And in a way, those wounds, they're reopened each time a wrongful conviction comes to light.
Because it's a reminder.
Exactly, that the system failed. Not once, but twice.
So how does a community recover from something like that?
It's a process, a long one. And it requires a commitment, both the community and, those in positions of power.
Like law enforcement.
Law enforcement, yeah. They have to be transparent.
Accountable.
Right. Acknowledge past mistakes and show a genuine willingness to, learn and improve.
Learn from the past.
Exactly.
And there needs to be a sense of shared responsibility, right?
That's,
We all have a role to play in making our community safer, more just.
I agree. Whether it's supporting organizations working on criminal justice reform, educating ourselves about these issues, or just having open and honest conversations.
Right. Just starting a dialogue.
We can all contribute to positive change.
That's a good note to end on.
It is.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive. It's been a heavy journey for sure, full of, darkness and tragedy.
Yeah, it has.
But even in the face of all these horrors, I think there's a glimmer of hope. Don't you think?
I do. I really do. The resilience of the human spirit, it shines through.
It does. Especially in those who fight so hard for justice.
Like the lawyers and advocates at the Innocence Project. The families who never give up hope.
And the people who are wrongly convicted. Even after enduring such hardship, they continue to advocate for a better system.
They're amazing, truly.
And let's not forget about DNA technology.
Right.
What a powerful tool it's become, revealing the truth, correcting past mistakes.
It's a testament to, human ingenuity.
Yeah. And our desire for knowledge. And justice.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, this look into the chilling case of Walter E. Ellis, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of, empowerment.
A call to action.
Yes. Let's turn this knowledge into action.
Right.
Support those organizations fighting for justice. Educate ourselves and others about these issues. And engage in those meaningful conversations about how we can create a more just and equitable society.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about one case or one city.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about ensuring that justice prevails for everyone, everywhere. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.